We are just about on time.
We are. We are. Let me see how many are. We've got several more that need to join us.
Yeah.
Maybe over the next few minutes, they will. But we're going to go ahead and get started. Just want to welcome you to week 5 of this new journey in your lives. And I was just looking at the calendar today. Do you realize that as of today, you are 1/3 through with this semester? And I thought about this too. In 2 weeks, now think about this. In 2 weeks, you will be completely finished with Evidence 1, the AAPSL. And in 3 weeks, we will have a town hall. We will have our next coaching session. We will introduce Evidence 2. And I can promise you the next time I stress this, you will be getting close to the end of the semester. I told you it goes by so quickly. I can't believe that we have finished almost 5 weeks already. But I want you to think about this. You think about where you were day 1 when we started this. When you started this program, and you think about where you are now. Now, some of you said, "Dr. Stebbin, I'm still struggling." That's normal. All of you are at different places, and it's just like the children that when you taught school, or those that you teach now, when those that are still teaching. Just think about every one of them. They learn at different. Well, you're no different. We all have, different learning styles, and we learn differently. We all have our own personal battles that we're dealing with, or our personal issues that we're dealing with. But in the midst of all of that, we figure out how we can work through that and try to make it work. Now, there's some, and Dr. Revis and I have talked, there's some that you probably are not feeling the best in the world. I want you to know that you do your part. We're going to do our part. We're going to help you get over the hump wherever you are now. There's going to be humps in this program. Everything's not going to be, there's going to be obstacles that come along the way. There's going to be bumps in the road, but we will guide you and we will help you get around. If you do your part, we will help you do your part. Now, you're not going to always like what we say. You're not going to always, and again, I'm going to go back to not treating you like a child, but you just think about your own children, personal children. You think about your students, they haven't always liked what you had to say, but you told them what they needed to hear, from your heart. So, if it comes across, in a harsh way or what, that's never our intent. Our intent is to, we want you to be successful, as we've said before. And sometimes it may seem, well, they don't care, or that seems so, inhumane, or, that's not the case at all. We do care, we do understand, but still, at the end of the day, we also know what is required. We know what's required of you. We know what's required of us. I mean, we have to. We're accountable. We're accountable to somebody. So, that all plays into what we're doing. So, I don't want anybody Don't beat yourself up. Do what we ask you to do. And it's okay. It's okay to say, I need help. It's okay. Sometimes all it takes is that one time. So it's okay to get there. We don't think any less of you when we need to do that. And Dr. Revis and I work together because we're a team, and that's why they've assigned us to do what we do. You know, when I'm working with my assigned group, sometimes Dr. Revis may be able to, because I may have said, well, I don't know any other way to say this. I don't know any other way to, but Dr. Revis may have that magic touch, and something she says may say, oh, that's what Dr. Stebbin was talking about, or that's not what I was seeing. And the same thing, she could do the same thing, and she may say, Dr. Stebbin, I don't know what else to say. Will you speak with so-and-so? Will you Zoom with so-and-so? And, you know, it may be that whatever I say could be the turnaround. That's why we work as a team. That's why we do what we do. So do not take, if we say, I want you to speak with Dr. Revis, or Dr. Revis says, I need you to meet with Dr. Stebbin or whatever, do not take that personally. That is to help you. And it's not a sign of failure. It's not a sign. It's to help you get over the hump, and you know, and to get where you need to get. And with that in mind, I just want to say that, you know, remember last week, I was talking, and Dr. Revis was getting those chats and said, please ask Dr. Stebbin if would y'all consider, you know, we didn't need to. You have risen to the occasion, and I will tell you, as of just a few minutes ago, and I think as of a few minutes ago, 8 of the students in my class have already completed AAPSL task 3 and successfully, and moving on to task 4. I was, for the most part, I was overly pleased with the quality of work that came in. And again, if you're having to do some revision, that's not a bad thing. Do what we ask you to do. Ask for help if you need help. We will help you get there, and you too will get to that place, and sooner than later. Everybody had, you know, I cleared them up. We were working up to the midnight to the racing line, but they came in. Quality came in at the end too. The last ones that came in, it was quality work that came in. But all the peer reviews in my group have been finished. Congratulations. I also want to say that one group has already successfully done their Zoom video. Group 4, led by Sri, I will tell you, Dr. Revis, they did an amazing job. The whole group, they followed. Sri was the leader. She led that thing very professionally. I like the way, the format that they had. Everyone participated equally. They never got off task, not one time. Not one time did they get off task. And I listened to it this morning around 7 o'clock. I listened to it from beginning to end. And not one time did they get off task. Sari led them. She had her ducks in a row. She led them, and everybody responded to her leadership very effectively. I was highly pleased with their work. So I'm going to tell you, they've set the bar. You know, I'm expecting some great things from everybody else. But you know, overall, even though I, you know, have to fuss or whatever, I'm very pleased with where we are. And the ones of you that are still you're in the revision stage or whatever, you'll get there. Do what we ask you to do, and focus, and you will get it as well. Dr. Revis.
Sure. First of all, I just want to apologize to my group. I have not given any feedback today. I have been under the weather, don't know what's going on. But I did get everybody's assignment in on time Sunday evening.
Right.
And there was some really good quality work, just a few little tweaks on some things. So I was really pleased with that. But again, please pardon my tardiness on getting you feedback. As soon as this class is over, I'm not going to try to do anything tonight. But hopefully, good Lord willing, I'll be able to do something in the morning to get you some feedback.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Revis. And let me tell you what our plans are for today. We're not going to go over a lot of things. We're going to go over one thing because we have to get into task 4, and that's going to be our main emphasis today. And after that, if you have questions, we're going to let you ask questions, and then we're going to let you sign off so you can go ahead and get some things done. So we're here as long as you need us, but it may not take the whole time, Dr. Revis, based on what we're doing. I'm going to share our screen, and I do want to say that, to emphasize again, and I think you forget sometime, make sure that, let me pull up the template first of all. Make sure that you are using those resources in Blackboard. Again, we told you before, the AAPSL template and materials, you need to make sure that you're looking at that template. I would have me a copy right beside me, not looking, it would be a black and white copy right beside me. The template, the helpful hints document, and the completed AAPSL that we've given you to look at as well. All of that, it provides you with everything that you need to model the work that you're doing. So, don't make it hard on yourself, when you can, when you've got stuff right there to help you. Let me see what that, okay. Okay, let me go back up. It didn't, let me get to task 4. If you're having issues with task 3 still, and you need help, you need to let Dr. Revis and you need to let me know. And we will whatever we need to do. I'll make time, I'll make time tomorrow in my schedule. And if Dr. Revis is still under the weather and she needs to refer you to me, she'll let me know, and I'll Zoom a time with you and we'll pull it up and we'll look and see what the problem is, if that's what we need to do. So don't stress, we will get it done, okay? Up to this point, remember that when you started out with the AAPSL, remember that you had to research what a PLC was, what a good PLC according to research is, using DuFour as one of your references. You created a team, a committee, a PLC committee that's going to work with you. And you met with them and you established your norms and your values and, pretty much the purpose of what you needed them for. And then you went into task 2. And remember, in task 2, that's where you really begin focusing on the data, what's out there. You begin thinking about talking to your administration, working with your PLC, thinking about, what are the problems we're facing at our school? But then, what up front, you began thinking about what you thought was the biggest problem. The principal told you what they thought was the biggest problem, but your job was to take all that data, everything that you could get, and lay it out on the table to analyze it, to dig into it, and to come to a conclusion as a team, as a committee, based on what the data says. This is what our most pressing need is. Now, you may not be working on the most pressing need. It may be the need that your principal said you had to work on, but you know the process for identifying that most pressing need. And if that's not what your principal wanted you to do, then you had to do what they wanted you to do. But let's say that you were able to focus on what came up to be the most pressing need. That was task 2. And you said at the very end, the most pressing need is, or my principal has said that this is what they wanted our most pressing need to be, our focus to be. And then that's where you were this week with task 3. To begin with, remember that you had to do a literature review. And the literature review was a focus on the research that was focusing on whatever your identified need was. And remember that you had to do a minimum of three references in that literature review, a minimum. And then after that, you had to do an annotated bibliography. And you were looking for resources, what's out there that can help me to hopefully attack this problem that we've identified. What's out there. So you had to do 5 regular resources, and then you had to do 3 online resources. And the online resources should have been, programmatically based, something that you could use that had possibly a technology component to it, and it was going to help you attack the problem. And it needed to be something that you currently were not working with in your school. Now, if you think about what I said, 3 references in your literature review, 5 regular resources, and 3 online resources, that's a minimum of 11 resources automatically that we should have seen in your reference section, a minimum automatically. So I'm getting us to the point. You need to go back and you need to rethink those things. And it's important that you follow the rubric that we've provided for you exactly. Do not deviate from it. Don't say, well, I can't find anything. You've got to find something. You've got to research until you find it. You can't say, well, I'm not only going to put 2 there. If you only put 2 there, we're going to send it back. And even if it did get past us, it's not going to get past the evaluators. And that's going to start bringing your final score down. So we can't let it get past us. So that's where we are now. You've done you've done your literature review. You've looked at possible programs and resources that will help you attack this problem that you've identified. Now, guess where we are in task 4? You're going to attack the problem. You're going to attack it now. You're going to do an action plan, a plan of action. So that's where we are in task 4. You will lead your PLC in the research and development of an action plan proposal to present to the administrative team. Now, guess what? You want what you're doing now. Now, to me, this is truly, even though you've got task 5 to do, this is the culmination of what you've done in task 1, 2, and 3. You want what you're doing now to be so impressive that your administrative team and the team that you present to, they can't wait to begin implementing this. That's what you want to do. Your presentation and your work needs to just be over the top. However, if your administration decides we can't do this, or we've got to put it on the back burner, don't beat yourself up over it. You've done what you're supposed to do. You've learned the process, and you've told the truth. You've told the truth because you've done the research with your team and yourself, And you're telling it like it is, whether it is adhered to or not. So that brings us to what is your task beginning immediately, okay, with task 4. In narrative form, you're going to lead your PLC in the development of an action plan with a focus on your role as the leader, with references to the degree of collaboration, shared governance, and delegated responsibilities. The action plan is a concise and informative presentation that graphically highlights the research, data analysis, and expected outcomes, and is to be presented to the school's administrative team. Okay, now I'm going to leave this in just a moment. I want you to look. There's 2 parts to this. You've got a prompt 1, and I want you to see. Remember, we said if you see something in yellow, that means you got to write something, right? So you see all of these right here, they're headings. These are all going to be headings. And I'm not going to go over them yet because I'm going to go over them in a minute. So you see all those headings. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There's 7 headings. You're going to write under every one of those headings. We're going to come back and talk about it. Remember, we said if it's in red, that's just suggesting some things that you do. Your action plan summary must be displayed in the graphic organizer shown below and may additionally be displayed in the PERT chart. Now, you see this graphic organizer? Yours is to be exactly like what you see here, in the same order that you see here, with the same headings at the top. There will be no difference. You are to use this. And I'm going to come back to this in a few minutes. And then this is an optional. Some of you are creative, and some of you are very artistic. You'll have. This is a PERT chart. It's another way of displaying and showing your action plan up there. This is optional. However, remember, accomplished work means that you, and I'm going to show you in a few minutes, that you have gone over and beyond. This is considered over and beyond. Wouldn't you say so, Dr. Revis? So if you feel good about this, then I would say go for it. If you don't mess up, and don't take all your time doing something that you don't feel comfortable with or you don't understand. I'm just saying that this is an over and beyond, and some students choose to do it. Some students say, I'm not going to mess with that. That's an optional. Then there's 2 prompts. It's just the second thing you've got to do. The candidate will share the action plan with administration. You're going to do a formal presentation to your administration and whomever else they want to be there. And schedule a meeting between the PLC and administrative team to discuss possible implementation. You see that word possible. You're going to present it, and hopefully they're going to consider it. The discussion when you meet with your principal should include, but is not limited to, the following topics. Now, do you see these topics? You see the yellow highlighting, right? That means you've got to do research on what is building efficacy, strategies for sustained growth. This is all going to be a part of your discussion, your presentation, but you will have done some research ahead of time, prior to that, that's going to empower you to know what you're talking about. You will have done the action plan up here. This is going to all support your meeting with the principal and your presentation. Now, and it goes on down. There's 5 areas that you must do. And then again, you've got your reference section and you've got your appendices as well. Dr. Revis, is there anything you want to say while I'm pulling up our helpful hints? Can't hear you. Dr. Ravis, can't hear you.
I'm sorry.
That's
What a
okay.
lot of people do is they will use that action plan template as a graphic organizer, and they will work with the PLC to fill out that template and then write from that template and fill in all those different sections. Now you do whatever makes sense to you, but we do know when we use a graphic organizer, it's easier to write from. So that's just an idea and something that some people have found to be very helpful.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Ravis. Okay, let's look at this. And again, follow this as it's given to you. Make sure you read the description and instructions carefully. Prompt 1 of task 4 is the development of your action plan for your identified problem. You will first explain your action plan in narrative form. There are 7 headings that must be individually addressed relative to your identified problem for the action plan. Okay, let's look at this. First of all, you need to talk about, you should introduce this section with, what a good action plan is, and I'll show you that narrative. Right here it is. Okay, let's look at this. The importance, and I'm sorry, this thing does not want to work with me. The importance of the action plan, based on research. What is a good action plan? And they've cited a reference there. It doesn't need to be long, but you begin with what's the importance of an action plan? Why do you even have one? We've given you some references also under week 5 that talks about action plans that you can use as well. So there's some good stuff there. This is also an opportunity, the readings that you are supposed to be doing weekly on your own. This is an opportunity for you to cite some of those readings and let us know that you are reading the work that's assigned to you, because much of it is aligned with where you are and what you're doing. So just like Ubben is one of the authors of one of your books, Ubben and all. So this is an opportunity to focus on some of that. Then after you do that, you've got 7 headings. Your first one is alignment with student learning outcomes. And this is a brief explanation. Your action plan must align completely with student learning outcomes as measured by test scores, summative assessments, and it can be other things. You are to narratively explain that alignment in this section. The action plan that you're proposing, how does it align with student learning outcomes, the end result? Because that's what it's all about, improved student achievement. Now, again, we've gifted you with some good examples. Now, students previous to you did not have this. We just did this for the first time. So we've given you something that the others have not had. We've given you an example under the headings that should help you tremendously. And let's just briefly look at what this student said. Again, this is an example. Yours could go in a completely different direction. We don't want you to duplicate what you see here. It's okay to model after this, but it needs to be based on your story, what you find. Through data analysis and collaborative discussions, my PLC and I determined that our school's most pressing need is, again, they've identified that most pressing need again. Multiple data points such as EVAS and end of grade scores showed that there is a clear gap between the school's math achievement levels compared to the district and state. What are they doing right there? That is a profound statement for alignment with student learning outcomes. Our school is performing lower than both the district and state in 8th grade math end of year data. Guess where else you can find that? When you go to your EVAS report, and you have access to it, if you pull that EVAS up for your school. It has all kinds of reports and information in there that will tell you specifically about your school, the strengths, the weakness, how it compares to other schools in your district, how it compares to other schools in the state. All that stuff is in there. A lot of stuff that you will be able to use. But again, let's go on down a little bit further. They talked about social and emotional learning. Now, this was done right in the heart of COVID, when everything was basically virtual learning that was going on. So they had to take that into accountability when they were talking about things. As figure 13 shows, student accountability sheets are a Google Excel spreadsheet that allow the students to track their assignments, scores, and reflect in the last column on the score received. Again, they're telling the story of how they're going to align student performance with that action plan. Dr. Revis, anything that you want to say there?
No, I just think, I'll just make sure that you see it's a thorough discussion. It's a thorough narrative about, the areas of need.
Okay. And look, the second heading, short-term, mid-term, and long-term objectives. That's your heading. Now, that's self-explained. Short-term, what can you do now? What's something that you can propose to do now, you and your team, to help attack that problem? Then what is something later on that you can do, after you get through that, what's the next step? And then, some things it takes a little bit longer. What is that long-term goal? You need at least one short-term goal and objective, one midterm, and one long-term. You can have more. Don't overdo it. You can have more, but you must have a minimum of one for each of these. You must clearly define all goals and objectives for the action plan and provide what they are and when they are going to be implemented or measured. I would clearly delineate short-term, mid-term, and long-term. And with that in mind, let's look at this. My PLC and I decided that use of the academic enrichment block was a strong opportunity to support the core math block through both direct and individualized instruction. The academic enrichment block is, and told about what that is, but I want you to come on down. To align with this idea, blah, blah, blah. They're just giving their introduction. Leading up to it, then look here. Therefore, the short-term goal is, you see what they've done? They've provided support for it. Then they said, this is what it's going to be. Then look here. The midterm goal is. Now, what they've done, they're looking at incremental growth. Yours doesn't have to be that. Yours could be something else. Yours short, mid. They have done incremental growth is what they're looking at. And then they're supporting how that is supposed to happen. And then as a long-term goal, the PLC determined that students would achieve at least a 10-point increase in their score on their end-of-year Mastery Connect assessment. You see, they didn't start out with their short-term goal would be 10 points, because guess what? You can't do that. That's not realistic. But they have built the growth model for students, and they've supported it with how they intend to do that. Dr. Revis, anything else need to be said there?
No, I think you've got it.
Okay, the next heading is specific activities aligned with the designated goals and objectives. Okay, you said these are my short-term goals, these are my midterm goals, these are my long-term goals for the action plan. Well, what are you going to do to make all that happen? Specific activities. And I would say that you need, I would say a minimum of 3, but I think a good action plan, Dr. Revis, you need 4. You need 4 good, strong activities. Wouldn't you say, Dr. Revis? I would say
I agree. I wholeheartedly agree.
I
And
think you know, go ahead.
yeah, and don't forget that because you're implementing new programs, having professional development must be one of your activities, or should be.
Yes, it should be. So you're going to, this talks about, you know, those activities. You're talking about it. You know, this is one of the things that we're proposing to do. This is another thing that we're proposing to do. See, they're using Dreambox. That's one of the things that they're, you know, and they talk about Dreambox. Mastery Connect. I mean, they're talking about all the things that they're going to propose to do in the action plan. You know, you can't give just one thing and say, well, this is going to solve. You've got to try, you know, because one thing may not work, but all of it working together, all 4 proposed activities, and I'm using 4 because that kind of is the magic number. You can have more than that, but I would say at least 4. And this goes on to talk about, you know, this is what we're going to do. This is what we're proposing to do. Then, okay, once you do it, you've set your goals. Once you've put the strategies in place, this is my plan. How do you know that you have successfully reached your short-term, mid-term, and long-term goals and objectives for your action plan? There's your heading right there. How, you know, what measurement techniques have been put in place to make this determination? And in here they talk about what they intend to do to determine whether they are successfully reaching their short-term goal, their mid-term goal, and their long-term goal. Sri, before I go any further, what's your question?
When we were talking about the activities, the specific activities that you said, Dr. Stedman, would we be allowed to use the online tools that we had recommended in task 3 to?
Absolutely, that was the whole purpose. I would go back and look at task 3, and anything that you found that was good and you might be able to use, then you should be able to carry that over into the work that you're doing in task 4.
All right, thank you, Dr. Stedman.
Okay, Simone?
If we are going to do 2 professional developments with our PLC team, will that count as 1 or 2? I'm just thinking about my role as a coach. I will be 2 separate PDs to help with vocabulary as my most pressing need. Would that count, or will it be 1?
I wouldn't want everything that I do to look like just professional development.
Right.
So I would put them down there, but I would still have me 3 other good things that.
Right. I just want to make sure I'm able to include a mix, because obviously versus student.
Yeah. I would put them separately, you know, 2 different things because it's 2 different staff developments, but I would still find me at least 3 more good activities that I could do in addition to that. Good question, though. But this is what you know, how do you know that you're successful? You know, how are you going to do that? That's your job here. The key indicator of success will be measured by the short-term goal of students consistently earning at least a 65% on their formative and summative assessments from September, blah, blah, blah. Our first evaluation will be, you see that they're monitoring. It could be when you have your, you know, look at the pre-test, then look at your benchmark, you know, those assessments along the way. If that's what you're doing, that's one way to look at it. You determine along with your team, how are we going to measure success? Okay. And if you've got a program like Sri was mentioning, if you're looking at a lot of those tools are already built into the program, and you can pull from that program because it will print out, you know, where the students are and will let you know exactly, you know, how well they are working with. Like if you have Edmentum or you have Study Island, they will print out reports for you. So if the reports are there, use what's available. You know, that's one way of doing it. Then your heading is clarification of roles and responsibilities. Okay. Now you can't just say, here's the action plan, have at it. Who's been assigned to do what? And what have they been assigned to do? Now, I would think that as the candidate and the leader of the PLC, that your name should be in there somewhere. Okay? That you're part of those roles and responsibilities. I would hope that you're going to hold teachers accountable, you know, for some things. Your administration may very well and should be a part of, you know, you ask them, you know, in their walkthroughs to and you'll get more about walkthroughs when you do the AAPSL, but in their walkthroughs, would they consider doing so? So if there's lesson plan checks, monitoring things with fidelity is important. Again, who's been assigned to do what? And what are they going to do? That's simply all you're going to do there. Okay? You clarify the roles and responsibility, and you talk about it here. Again, all this is narrative. Then, your heading is formative and summative assessment. I want you to listen carefully. Don't be distracted. I want everybody to focus. Don't write. I want you to listen right now. Because I know what you think. You're used to working with students, and when you see formative and summative, you automatically associate that with students. For your purposes in this assignment, formative assessments are going to be for the adults, not students. Summative assessment will be for the students. For our purposes in this assignment, formative are for the adults. Summative is going to be for the students. Formative assessments are used to determine if programs are being implemented with fidelity. Who's supposed to be implementing those programs? Grown people. Now, how do you know the grown people are doing what the grown people are supposed to do? How do you know that the people assigned to do the what are actually doing what is supposed to be done, and it is being done timely and correctly? That is a formative assessment with adults. Again, it kind of ties back into some of the things we've already mentioned. And some of it you may say, well, that sounds like some of it will start running over. And there will be a blend. You will find yourself possibly repeating yourself sometime. That's okay. This is where there is a system in place to monitor the adults in the process, not the children, the adults, formative adults. Now you can get to the children. Summative assessments are used to determine if what has been implemented is making a difference. Now, that summative assessment, for most part, comes at the end. An example is our end of grade or end of course test results. And there are other forms of summative assessments. Again, formative is for the adults. Summative is for our students. Dr. Revis, can I say it any differently?
You did a very good job, a very thorough job, but this is where the majority of you miss it, is you forget about that formative assessment. And it's just not the term that we're very accustomed to using in education. So formative for this topic is about monitoring implementation from your staff.
And remember, now there were 7 headings. All you're doing at this point, you are narratively talking about everything at this point that you are proposing to go into your action plan. You're writing it. Okay, you're writing your story. Now, once each of the 7 topics have been narratively addressed, you will take that same information and you're going to put it into a graphic organizer. You will use the one that has been provided that I showed you back in the template. You're going to use that. The information, remember, in red. Well, we've talked about that, the PERT chart as an option. Okay. Now this is an example. Now again, this is just an example. This is not just, yours should not look exactly like this. This is an example. Now across the top, you're going to have these same headings in the same order. These are going to be your specific activities. Once you identify each of those activities, you're going to take activity 1. When is the time? When is it going to be done? Now, it may not be 3 times a week. It could be that you're going to begin this. For the most part, a lot of this possibly won't be implemented until your principal may say, well, we're going to start this next fall when school starts back. Or they may say, this is a good time for us to attack the area prior to our end of grade or end of course testing. So if that's the case, then it could be, I want you to start now. And we're going to run through May when we have end of course testing. So that would be from now until May. The timeline is, when is this actually going to happen? Okay. Again, person's responsible. Who's going to do what and what are they going to do? What do you need to get that done? Resources needed. What do you need to be able to accomplish this activity? Formative assessment. Again, remember, that's for the grown people. So what method are you going to have in place to determine whether the grown people that's supposed to be implementing this activity are actually implementing it with fidelity? How do you know? This is where you do that. Then, summative assessment. How do you know that what you're doing actually has made a difference, if it's working? What methods are put in place for you, or what are you going to look at? What are you going to use to determine whether the students are actually making progress, or if it's working? Your goals. This is where you list your short, mid, and long-term goals. And then again, how do you know that you were successful? Your indicators of success. Okay, now once you get all that done, you've got to prepare to present to your principal leadership team to discuss possible implementation. Well, you're just not going to say, I want to sit down with you and talk about it. No, you're going to do a formal presentation. This could be videoed, but it's not required. But you do need evidence that you are presenting again. You need strong evidence, and you must present at least, I would say, another PowerPoint presentation, and all of this will have to be embedded in prompt 2, because this is your proof. Now, you're going to present, but before you present, guess what you've got to do? You've got to prepare. Now, you've done all that up there. You're going to have all that up there, and you're going to decide how you want to show that in your PowerPoint presentation or whatever. But in addition to that, these are going to be talking points. These are going to be talking points. Now, I want you to and go back and read this information that's in there, because that will help you. That's part of the presentation that it's talking about. That's their presentation. So that gives you an idea. Now, that's where they put their resources. I don't like this right here, but that's where they put it in. I like to be able to see what this is not good right here. So don't let this be a model. This is just an example, but it's not a good model. I like to see what you're at. I like to see the frames, and don't think, well, it's taking up too much space. I don't care. I'd rather see it. Now, as you are preparing for that presentation, you're going to be guided by the following topics that you will have researched and prepared responses for prior to the meeting for your presentation. Your responses are not your opinion, but must be research-based where applicable. I would highly encourage using your PLC with this section as well. Okay. In your presentation, you're going to talk about building efficacy. Now, efficacy, that's and you'll do a lot of this when we get to the AAPSL. But all of you should have heard that term before. But building efficacy is not only for the students; it's for the teachers as well. Now, if a teacher feels good about who they are as a teacher, if they feel good about their craft, if they feel good about what they do each day, they are happy. They can't wait to get to work each day. They love the challenges of what they do in spite of COVID, in spite of everything else. They love to, if they've got a strong sense of efficacy, guess who that pours into? It pours into those students. If you feel good about who you are, it shows. It shows in that classroom. Guess what? Maybe the efficacy is not what it needs to be. What does the research say about that? Because you've got to begin talking about preparing as a part of your plan to build efficacy so that student achievement is good, that teachers feel good about themselves, students feel good about themselves. In narrative form, what does the research say about building efficacy amongst the teaching staff for improving student achievement? What does the research say? Now, you're going to say, well, how many references do I need that? I'm not going to tell you. I'm not going to tell you. It's at a place now where you need to do what you need to do, and it needs to be enough that it supports what you're saying and your presentation. Okay? Now, if it's one and you feel like that's strong enough, then so be it. I'm not going to, Dr. Revis and I are not going to penalize you for it, unless we don't think it's strong enough and we'll say that's not strong. I wouldn't do just one. I would have me enough in there that I could say, according to the research, blah, blah, blah says, and again, look how impressive that's going to be when you can talk this talk and walk this walk. I mean, I hope the superintendent's there to hear you too. Somebody, this is your time to shine. And you see what they've done. You see the research. See the research again. Then your next heading is, this is a talking point, but you've got to research it. Or you've got to, strategies for sustained growth. What does the research say about moving forward in the quest for improving student achievement? It's not enough just to get from point A to point B. But when you get to point B, what does the research say about staying there so that you can move on to point C and not go backwards. What does the research have to say? Strategies, those best practices that are out there for sustaining growth along the way. When you meet that short-term goal, what does the research say about being able to maintain that and move on to that midterm goal? And on and on. Again, this is not what Dr. Revis thinks. It's not what Dr. Steven thinks. What does the research say? Okay, those strategies. Now, your heading is issues concerning diversity. Now, what is diversity? Diversity could be a plethora of things, and we've just listed some. Okay, we know that when you look at your subgroups, every one of them could be an issue concerning diversity there, but then you look specifically with your exceptional children population. Your English as a second language is an issue in many of our schools. Migrant education, based on where you are, you determine those diverse groups. Every one of your schools are different. So while there are some things that are similar, there's going to be some things that Sari may have. They may be in Chapel Hill that somebody that Erica may not have in her school. So you see, you've got to determine what they are. They must be addressed in the action plan. You will discuss this first with your PLC team and then share candidly with your principal and leadership team. Because now these are obstacles that you've got to figure out, how are we going to deal with this? And you've got to figure out how you're going to overcome those issues as it relates to diversity, whatever it is that it is. Okay, just think about that. And these are some examples that they've talked about here. Next, this is an easy section. Your heading is resources. What are you going to need to accomplish the goals and objectives for the action plan? This includes both human and fiscal resources. What people do you need? What money do you need? If it's a program and it involves money, then you've got to talk about that, because your principal has got to determine whether that will fit in their Title I budget next year, or if they've got it now from some of the ESSER monies that have come down, which there should be still a lot of that out there. But you've got to realistically talk to them about a program that may cost something. Who and what are you going to need? Okay. And then you and your PLC team, you believe completely in what you're doing. You think it's the best thing since sliced bread, and you've almost convinced your PLC team that they love it too, or they wouldn't be a part of your team. But guess what? Your job is, you've got to convince everybody else, your administration and every other teacher, every other staff member that works at that school, that they want to be on this same boat with you. So you've got to establish a shared vision of learning. What are the plans for getting everybody on board and moving them in the same direction? This is truly leadership. So you and your team talk about, what are those plans? And then again, your reference section and your appendices. Now, I know you're thinking again, God, how am I going to get all this done? And this little bit of time. So here's the plan. We realize that you will not, for the most part, be able to present this, get it done and present it by Sunday. We understand that. However, You must have it ready for Dr. Revis and me to the best of your ability to be able to say, yes, move forward and present it the first part of next week. So we're going to work with you, with that. But we must see this. We must see, to the best of your ability, completed task for your action plan by Sunday, knowing that you're not going to be able to present it. In fact, I really don't want them to even think about presenting it, Dr. Revis, until we know that it's the quality that you need to present. And then you will have basically you'll have the whole next week. And I'm going to tell you why. You're down to task 5, and we'll talk about that. So the load will completely lighten as far as evidence work is concerned for the next few weeks after you get this done. Now, doesn't mean you don't have work to do, but it's not going to be nearly as cumbersome, as hard once you get this week over with. So you will have time, even if it takes up to next Thursday to get your meeting with your and do your presentation, you'll be okay. Because when you do your presentation, Dr. Revis and I will have said, yes, you're good to go. In fact, you may want to go ahead and think about, if you can work it in your schedule, go ahead and create the PowerPoint that you want to use if you have time. It would be good for us to be able to see this, and you just say, my meeting is scheduled for so-and-so, and this is the PowerPoint that I'm proposing to use. That, we could look at that and we could say, yes, wow, if you don't have time, then we understand, and we know that will come in with your final, with your final submission once you've made your presentation. But we would be glad to look at that as well, if you can work that in your schedule and have that ready. But you don't have to have your presentation. You just have to have this work to us by Sunday evening. Okay, Dr. Revis, I am worn out. I got to have some water.
Thank you, Dr. Stedman, for taking charge and leading
That's
us through
okay.
this
That's okay.
discussion.
That's okay.
I just want to show you a brief, may I share my screen?
Sure. I've stopped sharing.
I just want to show you a brief visual, and I'm not going to go through this whole PowerPoint. I think you remember, I don't know if you do or not, you've done so many things. At the beginning of the AAPSL, I talked about the reason you're doing the AAPSL is you're simulating a school improvement process that you're going to have to lead and facilitate when you become a principal. So this is actually a diagram, a graphic organizer, if you will, from South Carolina about their school improvement process. Starts right here with diagnose, select, plan, implement, monitor, and revise. So I'm going to overlay the AAPSL with this. As Dr. Stedman said before, the task 1 was just an organizing meeting. In task 2 is where you did your data analysis and identified your most pressing need. That's your diagnosis. In task 3, that's where you started looking at the research and selecting practices and strategy. In task 4, you're developing your action plan. Now, in your action plan, you're also going to talk about how to implement it. Remember those short-term, long-term, midterm range goals and implementations and your roles and responsibilities. You will also, in your action plan, talk about how we're going to monitor this. One of the things I think that schools don't do well with is monitoring your plans. And, you get all this trouble to go through 4 steps of this cycle, and we get to monitoring and we just fall down. And it's not just the principal monitoring. You can construct ways to self-monitor, peer monitor, those kinds of things. And then, of course, in the real world, you're going to monitor it and look at your summative assessments to see if you need to revise. And then the cycle starts all over again. So when you're in the real world with a school, this is what we do for our school improvement process. And it's a continuous cycle.
Right. Good. This is a good model to use. Let me pull before we leave, let me pull this up. I want to show you, go over this one more time. Let me minimize that. Let me go here. Okay, let's go back to our, so then we'll go give a chance if you have a question that you, it's slow. There it is. Let's look at what is due this week. And like I said, many have already done this. Task 3 of the AAPSL is due to Blackboard for final grade. You can go ahead and turn that in any time once Dr. Revis and I have cleared you. Okay. That would be by Sunday at the latest, but don't wait until then. Task 4 will be submitted to Blackboard for peer and instructor review no later than Sunday, this February 13th by 9 o'clock. Your task 4 peer reviews again by next Tuesday. And you're doing an excellent job with the peer reviews. And then remember that task 4, you will have completed that, not this Sunday, but next Sunday, Sunday week. That will be when you finish up with task 4. And then your Zoom team peer review assignment that I spoke about at the very beginning that team 4 on my group has already done. That will be, you'll have to have that submitted no later than Sunday night as well. And if you get that completed, go ahead and get that to us, as soon as you as a team have completed. I would, if you have not met as a team yet, I would highly recommend that you, since we're not doing a Zoom team on coaching team on Thursday, meet as a team on Thursday and go ahead. You're used to that time anyway. That would be a good time to go ahead and schedule this Thursday and go ahead and knock it out if you haven't done that yet. Okay. So just think about that. I'm not saying you have to do that, but that would just be a good time since you're already accustomed to meeting at that time as well. Questions at this point? I think you've got it.
It's a lot of writing on your part.
It is. It's a lot of writing, but you can do it though. You can do it. You've proven to us you can do it. So, Tracy, I hope you're feeling better. Keep Tracy in your prayers. She's having some major back issues and just not able to work and whatever. So just keep Tracy in your prayers. So,
please.
Yes.
I'm
Are
sitting
there?
here in pain
Yes,
now.
yeah,
But,
yeah. I could tell, Tracy. I could see. Any questions at this point?
Dr. Stedman, if you think that it's appropriate, then perhaps maybe just briefly tell us what task 5 would look like. That way, when we're working on task 4. In all respect, I'm not going to go there. You're not ready for that yet. And I'm going to tell you why, Sri. We want to tie that into your competency folio as well for task stream. We want to show you how you can work smarter and not harder. And that would be too much at this point. That's going to be our focus next week. And most of the class will be that, and then going into
your first
AAPSL.
no, Dr. Revis, case study, your case study coming up. So
Yeah,
that's going to be, that will be our focus next week. And you'll understand once I get to it, we get to it next week, you'll understand why. I think that that would take you even you, because you work fast and ahead, but I think that that would be too much for you with the responsibilities that you've got, you know, with what you've got to do with task 4. That's a pretty big responsibility this week. And I think you'll understand, but
excuse me. I think we can tell you that you will not have to pull together your PLC for task 5.
right, you'll be on your own. And it's, once you know what to do, it's not going to be, it's not a hard, it's not hard. That one's not a, that's not a hard task. So you're going to be fine, I promise you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Other questions?
Guys, we know
Jessica?
this is a tough week coming up, but you can do it. You proved that last week. And again, let's look at trying to do the best quality work that you can turn in. And then after this, it settles just for a couple of weeks. Not that you're going to not have to do anything, but it kind of settles. And you do a few different things that I think you'll enjoy.
And you'll find out after we get the AAPSL started. I think it's after week 8. There's week 10. I think is we have spring break. It doesn't mean that you don't do your work. You just don't have to come online with us. So that gives you some time then. And then there is another week after that that Dr. Revis and I give you. We allow you not to have to come on and to work and to catch up with you. We come on and we just basically are here for students that need to pop in and ask us a question, but we don't. So it will begin to, I told you, remember we said we would cut the apron strings later on. That's when we start cutting the apron strings or the umbilical cord, and we make you survive a little bit on your own then. So, but we don't completely let you go. We let you go a little bit. Okay. But we know you're going to be okay, or we wouldn't do that. We've never lost a student yet that stuck with us. And you're sticking with us. You've come too far now.
Be sure to reach out to us if you have any questions. We'll be glad to support you.
Okay. Well, good night, everybody.
Good night.
Okay. Bye-bye.